Cool. Welcome, everybody. So this time of year is upon us, Winter 26, and we've got Daryl is kindly again going to take us through his highlights, all the treasure and gems that he's found in this release. But before we get started with that, I'll just run through a few announcements about upcoming events. And also, actually, first, before I forget, some housekeeping. So we're recording, so if you don't want your voice or video in here, just don't turn on your video, don't speak, but definitely just pop questions. You can still interact in the chat. We'll for Q&A, we'll have a couple of sections of this, so we'll pause after the first section for questions. So if you've got something burning, either you can pop it into the chat and we'll attend to it during the question time. Otherwise, hold on and you can ask yourself during the time for questions. Okay. I guess your user group leaders, that's me, Josephine, and Tanya. We're all on the call today, except Tanya's out somewhere, so she can't speak at the moment. But me and Josephine are definitely audible for you. And then in case you haven't seen it, you can follow us on LinkedIn. Afterwards, I'll just paste a link into the chat, and that way you can get our notifications of any events that are coming up. And obviously you're probably signed up to the user group, so you'll get notifications via email of any upcoming sessions. Now, speaking of upcoming things, we've got True Blue Blazing. This is our very own community-led Dream-In conference. Yay. So that'll be at Marvel Stadium on the 14th of November. It's going to be huge. We've actually got speakers up on the True Blue Blazing website, so I'll post that in the chat as well. We've got, yes, a whole lot of speakers. It's a huge event. Register. What else can I say about it?
Actually, if I could just say something.
Yes.
I'm so impressed with the lineup of speakers that we have, because being on the organising committee, I was, it's the first time I've been involved in organising something like this with others, and I was a little bit concerned, will we really have enough interest for people? And now I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, we need to just be in 3 places at once, because there's just we'll be spoiled for choice. So it's definitely take a look. It's going to be a great lineup.
That's it. I'm going to have my Barocca that morning. I can run around.
I'd love it if we had someone recording everything, because I know I'm not going to be able to get everything that I want to. So yeah, it's going to be a great day.
And so that's just a little, we've got Mo Ravi as the keynote, and that's just a little I just screenshot the website really at some point last week, so but you can scroll down and there's heaps and heaps of speakers. Also another event earlier in November is Down Under Dreaming Brisbane. So if you're going there, just make sure you come back for True Blue Blazing. So definitely check that out. And I guess, and I left it off. Dreamforce is somewhere in mid-October. They've started putting sessions up on Salesforce Plus already. So if you can't make it in person, you can have a look at, it's mostly Agentforce. So you can learn about, watch Agentforce keynotes if you want. I have been trying to look for when the Metallica bit is on, because I'm into that, and I couldn't figure out when it was. So if anyone can point me to that, please, I would appreciate it.
Thursday
Sorry?
morning. It was Thursday morning.
Oh, is it Thursday morning? Thank you.
Yeah, it's Wednesday night in
actually-
San Francisco.
Yes. I'm writing this down. I hope they broadcast it as per the past few years. So anyway. There we go. So Daryl probably needs no introduction, but I'll give a quick one anyway. He has an extensive background in ICT, gained over many years in a variety of roles across several state and national governments and in the private sector. I won't say how many years, so I don't date him. Since becoming an accidental admin with a state government agency in 2014, though, he has been immersed in the Salesforce ecosystem. Since retiring from full-time work, I think a couple of years ago now, Daryl continues to develop his Salesforce training courses at certifiedcrm.com and remains actively involved in the Salesforce ecosystem. You'll definitely find him around on LinkedIn, actively posting there, with, especially around release time. That's when I see most of the posts, as well as presenting to user groups and virtual conferences. In fact, I think you're presenting at True Blue Blazing as well.
Correct. We've got something very special.
Oh, there we go. So now, without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Daryl.
Well, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Josephine and Tanya, for all your organising. I'll just share a screen. There we go. So that's me. As Anne said, you'll find me lurking around on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in some of my online training courses, you'll find those at certifiedcrm.com. So today we're all about Winter 26, and we've split this presentation into two pieces. First, the admin features, and then the flow features. I'll stop halfway through and we can have questions and answer session, and then I'll do the flow section, and then we can do some more at the end. So here are the admin features that we're going to look at today. Multi-column list view sorting has become generally available. Field history tracking, that's exciting, interesting. User object history tracking, that's brand new. Question mark on this collapse sidebar, and I'll explain why when we get to that one. Permission set list views and permission set groups list views has been improved. Salesforce Go, I'll take you through what that looks like. Improved case descriptions and setting up service level management. So those last two are particularly for Service Cloud. So let's, so that's the admin features, and then I'll just introduce the flow features as well, so we don't have to come back to the slides. So on flow, we've got a tool now where we can compare two versions of the same flow. We've got tools to make text more readable and accessible within screen flows. Toolbar resizing, way better debugging capability. Theme picker for screen flows. We can use static images in display text, and what that means. Time-based automations are all in one place now. We can do nested loops and get related records. And there's also an option to restrict access to run flows. Now that's a release update that we'll talk about as well. So thank you. Okay, well, we're not quite to the thank you stage yet, but we'll get out of there and go back to our first topic, which is the, just grab the right screen on this side. Okay, so the first one is our multi-column list view sorting. Now, you've probably seen this already. It's now generally available, which basically means it's safe to be able to use in production environments. So here we've got our list view for opportunities. So we've got our all opportunities list view. And you can see by the arrows here that we've got 3 columns sorting now. Previously, we only had single column sort. Now you can sort by up to 5 columns. Not every object is supported yet. Most of them, though, most of the key ones are. And if you see this double arrow icon here on the right-hand side, that's where you go to select the columns to sort by and whether you want to sort by ascending or descending. You can see I've sorted by those 3 fields, and then if I scroll down, you see I've got an option to add some more, and we've got a limit of 5 columns in total. Okay, so here we've got our opportunities, firstly sorted by close date. So all of those close dates are in order, the most recent ones closing first, then by stage, and then by the amount. Okay, so that's quite helpful on something like opportunities where there's multiple factors that you want to include in your column sort. Okay, the next one is field history tracking, and this is under setup. Now, if you remember configuring field history tracking before, and the reason why we want to do this is we often get questions about, okay, who changed the amount on that opportunity? When was it changed? Who changed it? Okay, so it's kind of like an auditing process. And typically what we did is we went into the object manager and we would look at an object, let's say, for example, the account object, and we would choose all of our fields and relationships. And then on the right-hand side, we'll go to set history tracking. And we go through here, enable it first, the checkbox at the top here, and then select up to 20 fields here that we want to be able to include in history tracking, and then we hit save. So then whenever there's a change made to, for example, to the account object, to a record, those changes, if it's one of these fields that we've selected, will be tracked and we can display a related list for that. So that's how we used to do it. If you, so that's for the account object. If you now want to do the opportunity and you want to do contacts and you want to do assets and you want to do cases, it's a bit of a long-winded process, but now there's a better way, and this is with the field history tracking app. So it's got its own little menu item under setup, and it basically consolidates everything in one place. Okay, so by default, it will show a whole bunch of objects, but if we want to just show the ones that are already got tracking on, we can check this box and it will turn on only those that are already enabled for field history tracking. So for example, our account that we just looked at, and we can open that up and we can see which fields are tracked. Okay, exactly the same, but just a different view. And now, if we now want to go to asset and we want to make some changes and we say, well, we also want to know where the address is and what the asset name is, we want to track those as well, then we can simply tick those and save the changes. Then we can maybe go to our next object, maybe on the case, and do likewise. Okay, so we can maybe add some extra changes there. So it's all quick and easy, all done in the one application, which is really nice. Now, one thing just to watch out on here, over on the right here, it says fields per object tracking limit 60. Don't be misled by that. What that means is if you have Salesforce Shield, where the limit is increased from 20 to 60, then that applies. But in standard Salesforce, without the extra Salesforce Shield, which is a bunch of security features, your limit is 20. So, okay, so if you go to the account and there's already 20 there and you try to do a couple more, then you'll get an error when you try to save. Okay, so that's really nice. While we're here, the next feature we'll have a look here is we can now do history tracking on the user object. So I've already turned it on. So down the bottom here on the user object, I've selected some fields for tracking. Department, division, email, etc., and a few others. Okay, so now we can do field history tracking on the user account and we can see who's made changes to that user account. However, when you view the user account, the related list of those settings is not quite where you might think it is. So if we go to user account and we pick off one user, we'll pick this one. You would kind of expected it to be on one of these links here, wouldn't you? Because it's a related list. Well, it's not quite there yet. It's actually under this view summary button. Now, Cheryl Feldman, who is the project manager for a lot of these setup improvements, tells me that this view here is going to eventually be the new view for the user account. So not the one that we just came from, but you'll actually land here when you select a user account. Okay, so that's the intention. So they'll populate all of this with the features from the other part. Our field history tracking, that new feature on the user account, is right down the bottom, down here. So here's our field history tracking. It's a beta feature, and you can see there where I've made some changes to it, a user account. Okay, so that's looking nice. And you can then keep a very close look on things like, you know, maybe a profile's changed, or the user's license has changed, or the phone number, or whatever it may be. Okay, so good for auditing purposes. The next feature I wanted to look at was the collapse sidebar. Now, this was in the original release notes, and it actually worked for about a week when the pre-release orgs first came out, and there was a little icon just in the middle here, which when you clicked it, collapsed that sidebar, and it gave you just that little bit of extra screen space. But it's gone again. So I don't know what happened to that. Sometimes those things happen in releases. Sometimes the feature gets pulled because, I don't know, maybe it causes a problem somewhere. Okay, so we didn't get the collapse sidebar. Maybe we'll get that in the future. Next one is permission sets. We've now got proper list views. And by proper list views, I mean you've now got the ability to select the fields that you want to display. You can share this with other users. You can reset the column widths, etc., etc. Okay, and you can sort it and you can filter it. So just like a normal list view, you've got all those features now. Okay, so that's for permission sets, and permission set groups got the same treatment. Okay, so it's now got the ability to select the fields, sharing, renaming, cloning, etc. You can refresh it and you can filter on that as well. Okay, so we're getting there. So Cheryl's team is working on a lot of these user-related features, and we're getting there finally. The next one is Salesforce Go. Now, you might remember a young fellow by the name of Andrew Russo got up at, I think it was Dreamforce, might have been the last Dreamforce, and he had a t-shirt on with sales, service setup, sales setup, marketing
Setup.
setup, that's right. Well, they've kind of taken on his idea, and they've got this thing called Salesforce Go. And if you remember some time ago, I think it was maybe about 2 years ago, there was this buzz, and it was one of those buzzwords that Salesforce generate, called Salesforce Easy. And it was going to make Salesforce easy to configure. And it sort of buzzed around for a little while, and then it sort of disappeared. But I think some of that spirit has been encapsulated into Salesforce Go. And the idea of this is to consolidate all the additional features that you might want to set up in Salesforce into one place and make it easy for you to set them up. Now, there's a whole bunch of features, and there's some different groupings. So on the home page here, you can see field service initial setup. So if you want to set up field service, now you can see that I'm working in a developer edition. So I've got access to field service setup, and you can go through and set that up. Click on that button and it'll take you through the steps that you need to do. There's also a video, so you can watch the video and learn about the setup for field service. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Of course, Agentforce gets a big mention there. And there's a whole bunch of different features there. They're also grouped into feature sets. So if what you need to do is sell and grow with partners in your Sales Cloud, then you probably need an Einstein lead scoring for your partners, and opportunity scoring and lead intelligence for partners. Okay, so you can go through that and configure that feature set as well. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of different, if you need to nurture sales leads, then it's recommended that you include these features here and go through and configure that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do in here. Or you can just look at the individual features themselves, and there's like 231 of them, so there's a whole lot of them. If all you want to do is just Gmail integration, then go over here and that'll take you through that Gmail integration feature. Okay, so that's quite nice. And of course, you can filter these as well, and you can choose which clouds that you're mainly interested in as well. So if you're just interested in Sales Cloud, then you can pick that and it'll just take you through those features for Sales Cloud. So I kind of like that, especially for new admins, to guide them through that process. Okay, the next one is on the Service Cloud, and I was a little bit confused with this one initially because it said that they have enhanced the case descriptions in that you can use rich text in there. So I went and had a look at support setting, and I looked under support settings and I was looking for rich text in case descriptions, and I looked through all these options here and I couldn't find it, but I did find one, rich text for case comments. So I turned that on. So I think what's happened is they maybe mixed up the description in their release notes, and it should actually be case comments, because this is where it's really useful. So if we look at, let's go back and let's go look at a case. So we need to turn that feature on back there. Here, just edit that, tick that box to turn it on. And then let's go and have a look at, I've got cases here somewhere, here we are. Now, this is a new case comment field. Okay, so the old case comment field, which is plain text, still exists. So you've got to put this new field on your page layout or your Lightning record page. Okay, but once you've done that, then you've got rich text capability within the case description, case comments. I'll put one on a separate tab, and here you can see how the comments can have rich text attributes. So this one's got a table, this one's got an image, and this one's just got some text with some extra attributes. And we can edit those, and you can see what they look like, and you can see what the editor looks like as well. Okay, so that's just a table with some different attributes within it, but you can insert images, links, tables, special characters, horizontal lines. You've got all these formatting characteristics, attributes of the tables, etc. Okay, so that's rather nice in that you can maybe include a photograph of the fault of the object, from the customer if need be. You could include a table with some options, maybe a little image. Okay, so lots of different options there on case comments. This is a beta feature. Okay, and the next one, and I think this is the last one before we get to flow, is service level agreement setup. Okay, so they've renamed entitlement management to service level agreement management. So SLA management is the new heading level here for entitlements. And if we go to let's make sure we go to the right place. entitlement settings first. This is where we can turn on the new simplified SLA setup option, this one down here. So this is settings within entitlements. So if you turn that on and then go back to, lost my spot. Okay, go back to SLA policies now. We can have a look at an existing policy. And so this one is for gold level support agreement for a customer. This is one that we prepared earlier. Okay, so it has a name. By default, you can select the business hours that are applied in here. You set an entry criteria and the exit criteria. It is applied to the case object in this example, and you've got milestones. Now, for anybody who's been through and created entitlements before, it was a bit of a crazy sort of a setup, and this is just pretty much, I think, in the back end, the same sort of stuff is going on. It just seems to be so much more logical and so much easier to configure from setup. So anybody who's gone through this process before without this new service level agreement revamp, hopefully will appreciate that this is way nicer than what we had before. Okay, so that's our admin features. Do we have any questions? Let me go back to where I can see, what have we got here? Oh, okay. Everybody's transcribing.
I didn't see any questions. Mia has commented that you can get field history tracking as a standalone add-on, which is cool. If you don't have to get full shield. Oh, Tom, you've got a question?
Can't hear you, Tom. You're on mute.
Classic. Yeah, I can't remember if you covered it just along with this, the entitlement changes and milestone changes, that you can now, there's a new field that you can enable called time to next milestone on the case object.
Oh,
which you can then show in like case list views. You can put it into like compact layout so it can display in like Omni Supervisor, so people can see not just like, you know, priorities of things, but also when all your cases, say they're in a queue, when the next milestone is going to be hit, and prioritize cases in that way.
right. That's excellent.
I think it's in the entitlement settings. I believe
Right.
if you go into there, it's like a field you enable in there.
Oh,
you get
yes,
on there,
yes,
time to,
it's
yeah.
enabled.
So
Yeah.
it's then once that's on, it's a field that shows on the case object you can display in list views.
So that would be really helpful to make sure that your case doesn't breach one of those service level agreements.
Yeah, I literally had it on a project I'm working on at the moment for a customer, and that was a requirement they had. It just came out, and
Oh, wow.
we've actually done it where we can now do SLA-based routing. So we do routing based on what is the next milestone that needs to be hit.
Yep, to make sure that we don't let that breach. Okay.
Yeah, just a little extra thing there.
Thank you. We've got a question from Charles. Can SLAs be migrated? Entitlements are data records, so can't be included in change sets. Can you migrate SLA policies?
Don't know the answer to that question, to be honest. Tom?
Tom?
I believe you can, because I think I'm going through this at the moment. So any milestones you can move, any entitlement settings you can as well. It's just the entitlement record itself that you need to recreate, but the actual configuration has been deployed.
Entitlements are a bit funny too, because once they're created, they're kind of locked, aren't they? You can't change them.
Yeah, they have version history, just like a flow does. So every time you make changes, it creates a new version. So it works in a similar way to flows.
Yeah, gotcha. Just back to Mia's question there about the field history tracking as a standalone add-on. Mia, I wonder whether you're talking about, there's one with a very similar name and that's part of Shield. And I just wonder whether that was the application you were talking about.
Yeah, it's you can break out any of those items from Shield and just buy them separately.
Right, okay. Right, so what you can do that and get your 60 fields, that is a paid add-on. And I know the whole Shield package is like an extra, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, it's either 20 or 30% of your total license spend.
Non-profits is 10%.
Yeah.
But like each add-on has a cost.
Okay.
And then it gets an overall cost if you get all of it. But like ultimately it's like 4 or 5 products, but if you get 3 of them, it's all like if you get 4 of them, it's almost the same as all 5 of them, but we didn't need all 5.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. If there's no more questions, we'll jump straight into the flow. I think we're good so far. Yep. Okay. So let me just pull up my notes for flow. Okay, lots of nice features in here. So let's start with my record trigger demo flow. This one, not that one. Although I probably could have. I've got one here, a record triggered. This one. Because I know it's got a couple of versions. Okay, so in the previous release, we were able to see up the top here multiple versions of our flow. Okay, now what we've got is the option to compare versions, which is kind of nice, as you can see what's changed. So I can choose, say, version 2 of this flow and compare it with version 3 of the same flow and hit the compare versions, and it will now show us what has changed. So when did it change and what has changed? And you can see that there are 3 changes made. And on the right-hand side, you've got the option here to view the details, and we can see that I was a good little admin and I added a description. In the assignment, there were 2 things changed here. First, there was a description added, but then the value on this annual revenue field was increased as well. And then finally, on the last one, I think we added another description here as well. Yeah. So there's that compare feature, which is kind of nice. Okay, back to the Winter 26 demo screen flow. This fellow here. And in this display text area here, we've now got the choice of, as we had before, being able to add different fonts and different attributes, but you can actually use styles now. So just if you just scroll this little box down here, and if I select the correct one, this one here, you can see that it has heading 1 paragraph style applied to it. So if you want to try to get some consistency with your display text areas, you can, for example, always use heading 1 for your headers, heading 2 for your next level, heading 3, etc. And you'll have some consistency right throughout your flows. So instead of configuring the font and the size here, you basically just jump straight to the heading style. Okay, done. The next one is our flow toolbar. So when we've got our toolbar open, sometimes you need a bit more space, and you've got this little option, and this is a little bit like the one that was in setup that's gone missing, that allows you to drag it and make it larger where needed. Okay, so just a nice little feature there. You can just expand that if you need a bit extra space, or collapse it if you don't want it.
Yeah, that's good. Sometimes you want that stuff on the slides. Sometimes it's just annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes if there's a lot of detail here, because you've clicked on here to see the details or something, you might want a bit more space. So you can do that if you want to. Next is the debugging, which is probably one of the nice features. Although I did read this morning somebody's criticism of this feature and said it was really crappy experience. So yeah, I'm not sure on that, but let's have a look and see what it actually does look like. Okay, so we've got some unsaved changes. All right. Okay. Now, save as a new version. Okay. Let's activate that. No errors. Okay. And debug. Right. So now the debug appears on the left-hand side. That's the first change. And you'll notice that our flow stays open, which is kind of nice. So it's not jumping off to another tab like it did before. We can choose to run as another user, and then we can hit run. Now I've locked myself out. Oh dear. Oh dear. How embarrassing. What have I done? Maybe I'll just come out of that flow and come back again. Hopefully that I've just made some dumb mistake.
It's to everyone.
Yeah. Okay. No. Oh dear.
Oh, do you need to add yourself access to the flow because they enforced run flows?
Yes, which is one of my later ones, and maybe I
Sorry.
did that. Maybe I did that, and maybe that's why I tripped myself up. Okay, so good lesson there. Let's have a look at the flow, and I'll do it from setup here. This one here. So there's a couple of ways that we can do security on the flow. Not there. It's not where I want it to be. Not where I want it to be. Still not where I want it to be. Oh, here we are. Edit access. That's what I wanted. Okay. I think I just need to put myself in here to be able to run that flow. So I'm playing with some security settings, and I think I just locked myself out of that flow. And I'll cover that in a minute. Let's just see that we can now run this. That's better. Okay. So now we're displaying the flow, but on this other tab here, we've got the canvas of the flow, so we can see the full flow and what's going on there. And then back on the left-hand side, we've got the detail log. Okay, and of course we can expand that a little bit like we could before, and we can also copy that as we could before. And when we go next, we've now got the details in here. So the next part is to display a table and an image, and we can look at the details of that. So we displayed that text, and we did a get records for these hot account records down the bottom here, and we selected them where rating equals hot, etc. Okay, so you can see that, and if you need to, this is where that's nice to be able to drag that debug out and give yourself a bit more space. And then if we finish, it will finish. And now the interesting part here is the display text. Okay, so there's the variables at runtime. Here's the screen component. Now the screen component had some inputs, which was the hot count records. So there's a whole bunch of data there that came in for those. That was the input. And then they were nicely displayed as a table. And then the output was the ones that we selected. Now we didn't actually select any in that table. That's why this comes up as empty. and then our flow finished. And of course, we've still got our flow canvas there, and we can jump straight back into editing our flow again. So that's a much nicer experience than getting thrown off to another tab and having the debug sitting outside. And as according to Adam White, Adam's the project manager for a lot of these flow features. This is just the start of the improvements to flow debugging, and there's a whole lot more to come yet. Okay, while we're here, theme picker for screen flows. So while we're looking at that display screen, this one here, oh yes, up here, the preview style. Now, these are different theme settings. And you'll notice that, for example, and this is probably the only spot in this particular screen where you'll see it change, is that this one has got a blue color scheme and our next button is blue. So as we change to different Lightning themes, you'll see that that button, for example, changes. If you have other attributes of the theme that are changed, like perhaps the font colors and so on, then they would change as well. But in this particular one, we're just going to see the buttons change. So here you've seen that Cloudy Canyon, that's that orangey sort of color one. Sorry, Cody Canyon. It's got an orange button, and Lightning Ridge has got a different color blue button as well. Okay, so you can see those different preview styles, as well as the preview size that came out in the previous release, which was where we could see what it looked like on tablets and phones. So now we've got also that style. So if we had, for example, a style for Experience Cloud, then we could see what that display text is going to look like on that Experience Cloud site. Also, while we're here in this flow, on this one, where we've got an image plus a table. Now, dealing with images in flows can be a bit of a pain because the images weren't treated as metadata and you couldn't deploy them, which is a bit of a pain in the butt. Now you can. So this is a display text with a rich text image encoded in there. And if I select that image, down the bottom here is this little option here where we can insert an image. And you've got the choice of uploading the image directly, which is the old way of doing it, and that won't deploy, or you can add an image from static resources. Static resources have been around since well before Lightning was around, and they live here. And you can basically just dump images in here and reference them from anywhere, and they're treated as metadata so you can deploy them. So there's our fire image, and you can view that somewhere, view the file, and you can see that that's what that fire one looks like. Okay, so that's kind of nice that you've got that ability there. And you've also got, for accessibility, you've got the ability to add alt text here as well. So you can add an alt text that goes with that image, or if alt text doesn't apply, that you can just check this box here and say, well, it's only decorative. Okay, next one is time-based automations. Okay, back to setup. If you remember, during workflows, there was a section where you could go and have a look at all of your automations that were pending sometime in the future. So now they're all grouped under time-based. So it's basically just renamed time-based automations. So this screen might be familiar to you. And they've kind of dumped everything in here. So the queue includes scheduled paths for record triggered flows, scheduled triggered flows, time-dependent workflow actions. So that's what used to be here, and scheduled actions for old process builder and resume events for flow as well. So you can select your criteria here in the add search, hit search. And you might say, hang on, I've seen this before. Well, yes, because it's been around since July. So this one came out a little while ago, sort of in between releases, I guess. So yeah, that's when I saw that. I thought, hang on, I've seen this before in my old org, and I did a bit of digging and found out, yes, it has actually been around since July. Okay, and lucky last is the release update for Flow Security, and this is the one that tripped me up at the start when we tried to debug that flow. So there's this release update called Restrict Access to Run Flows. Now, release updates are Salesforce, I was going to say bug fixes. They're not always bug fixes. There's sometimes features that Salesforce kind of encourages you to deploy them and do some preparation work and make sure that they're working. And if you don't, then eventually they'll deploy them anyway. And that's to enable future features and so on to be able to work, you know, where these are prerequisites. Now, this one is all about improving flow security. So you can have a read through here about all the when and how and so on. And where do we find these release updates? Well, they live here, just on the setup menu, release updates. And there's a number of different tabs here. There are the ones that need action. So if you're an admin, you should be keeping up to date with this, and every couple of months having a look here and seeing, okay, what do I need to do? What's coming up needs action right now? What's due soon? What's overdue? And worst case scenario, what's already been done? Now, this one, I had to hunt around a bit. There's no search facility here, which is a real pain. So you can do a browser search. And I found it all the way down here, the bottom here somewhere. Now I can't find it. It was here somewhere. Yeah. Not that one. Anyway, it was down there somewhere, right down near the bottom. Maybe it's changed order. Maybe some other things have been released and it's moved its location. Anyway, so what's happened is this was originally going to be implemented like a year ago. What did it say? Winter 24, and then they put it off to Winter 25, and now they're eventually enforcing it in Winter 26. So it basically restricts the user's ability to run a flow. So you've got to now have the right profile permission set to run the flow. That's the objective of what this is about. So if you apply this release update, then the user's ability to automatically, always, every user to be able to run the flow is taken away. And you've actually got to do something to enable that. And there's a couple of things that you can do. One is you can go to the user account and select run flows, I think it's called, or flow user. What's it say? There's a checkbox here, flow user. Okay, so that will override. Although it's interesting because it didn't override the ability to debug the flow though. But maybe it allowed us to run it, but not debug. So that's one that will override, but basically you need a permission set or a profile that has the ability to run flows. So I've created a permission set here called run flows. And maybe I'd forgotten to assign that. Let's have a look, see who I'd assigned it to. Maybe I didn't assign it to myself. Oh, there you go. That's why it didn't work. Okay. No, I should have assigned that to my admin account. And all that has in it is I think it's under app permissions. Just look at my notes.
Flow access, I think.
Oh, sorry, flow access. You're right.
I went through my whole.
There it is. Flow access. Okay, so there's actually a section here for flow access, and you can edit this, and you can add to the permission set which particular flows you want it to be able to run. And there was another option here as well. Just checking my notes. Yeah, there was one on app permissions there. Let's just go back to that. So it depends on how fine you want to hone the permissions down to. So under app permissions, there is one called run flows, and there's actually a little section here, flow and flow orchestration, and here we go, run flows. Okay, so we did have the permission there to run flows, but what I didn't have is the permission to manage flows, and that's why I couldn't debug that flow. Or maybe this one of these. Yeah. So for more granular control, yes, you can get down to a permission set, and as Anne just mentioned there, in the flow section, you can specify which flows you're allowed to run. Now, the other thing that you can do is from your list of flows, you saw me change that one earlier. So we'll just select another one now. Say, for example, this one. You can edit the access on the individual flow and say, okay, who can run this one? So you can now select available profiles. It's interesting because it does say select profiles or permission sets, but it only seems to give a list of profiles here, which I thought was interesting. Maybe eventually this is going to include permission sets as well. Okay, so you kind of got two levels of access there. You can basically say, well, let's go apply that release update, but then let's create a permission set and let everybody run flows, and we'll just put run flows in there and we'll assign it to everybody, which basically just puts you back where you were before. Or you can go more granular and say, okay, now let's decide within each one of those permission sets. So maybe we need a bit more, a few more permission sets, and be a bit more granular and decide, okay, which of those permission sets can run which flows. Okay, so it gives you that option, whereas it didn't have that before. So remember, you've got to untick the user account, the checkbox for run flows, apply the release update, and then choose either the permission set with run flows and apply that to everybody, or go more granular and select the individual flows and assign them like we were doing here. Okay, so getting more and more secure access around flows is the whole aim of that exercise. Okay, and that's our last feature. Let's go back and see whether we've got any questions. Any new features for developers? I'm sure there is, but yeah, I don't normally cover those because they're a whole new world all on their own, and not one where I've got a lot of expertise, so that's why I don't cover that. And of course, I don't cover Agentforce because unless you're blind and deaf and can't read, there's a million things about Agentforce, and I'm sure that Dreamforce will be nothing but Agentforce for the next 2 weeks. So that's why we're kind of sidestepped the Agentforce stuff as well. So getting some attention to some of the long lost, forgotten features of setup finally. Big thank you to the Salesforce teams behind that.
That's awesome, Daryl. Thank you. And if anyone is going to Dreamforce, just look out. There's going to be a whole section just for they were talking about calling it Community Cove. I don't know if that name is sticking or not, but there'll be a lot of stuff there that's not Agent Force, but is specifically stuff that is useful for all of us as people in the community.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And I believe you've got a bit of insider knowledge there, Josephine, on that.
A little bit of a sneak preview, maybe.
Awesome. Okay, I don't think we have any more questions. So thank you, everybody, for your attention. Hope you enjoy some of these new features. If you're not lucky enough to attend Dreamforce in person in 2 weeks' time, don't forget to jump on Salesforce Plus. A lot of the sessions are repeated on there, so they're finally, catering for us people whose seasons are a bit opposite to those in the Northern Hemisphere, and realizing that, hey, we'd like to watch some of that stuff as well and not get out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you so much, Daryl. And thanks everyone for joining. As always, lovely session, and can't wait to see you all for the next one.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you, everybody.